Good evening from Rocky Mountain PBS. I'm Cynthia Hessin. This is Colorado State of Mind. On our minds tonight, the big business picture for the next year ahead. We're talking about it with three Colorado corporate leaders, including Al Power, President and COO of the Gates Corporation, which has been headquartered in Denver since 1911. Also, Tom Clark, CEO of the Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation and writer of the Cone of Silence blog, which I want to say more about later. And from Colorado Banking, the Denver Metro president of Wells Fargo, Mike Matthews, who has worked for Wells Fargo around the state since 1988. So this is really a rare chance to ask about some of the forces that are shaping this regional economy of ours. And Mike, I want to start with you. We know banking is the cornerstone of how money is flowing and shaping things. And you said at a meeting of the South Metro Chamber of Commerce today that one thing that you have noticed is that business demand for credit is down significantly. Why is that?
Yeah, and let me clarify that a little bit, because actually in 2012, as we went through the year, credit demand was probably as high as I've seen it since about 2007, 2006 perhaps. So through about September, we were seeing for a long time unprecedented demand for new loans. Businesses were looking at expansion. They were looking at replacing equipment. And then around the end of September, sort of the middle of October, everything began to slow down. Now, everybody can speculate on perhaps what caused that, but businesses even had loans in the queue, if you will, that were looking at new acquisitions or even business equipment and said, you know, we're going to put this on hold. So just hold off for a little bit. All
right, that is very interesting. Well, first of all, backing up, you say the demand was high through the year. Mm-hmm. Were people able to get the loans? I mean, we know that's kind of a problem too.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's been a little bit misleading that's been reported is that, yes, I think banks did tighten some standards, but overall credit did not blow up and go away at most financial institutions. What really happened is I think there was a much closer look at the amount of equity someone's putting into a project, for example, or the amount of equity that you're looking at for a real estate loan. So it was loan-to-value issues that were probably driving it as much as anything. And the other thing we were seeing is businesses were declining relative to cash flow. Their balance sheets were getting weaker as things were going on. And so it was a little bit harder to qualify because a firm that had a very strong balance sheet going into this recession, their balance sheets tended to drop a little bit. But the one thing almost every business has done, and you hear about this, I can attest to it from us in Wells Fargo, businesses are sitting on a lot of cash right now. There is a lot pent up on the sidelines, waiting for the opportune time to move forward.
So September would have been, of course, as we were all breathlessly waiting for what this November election would bring. But now, wouldn't you think things would to move again?
Yeah, I think one would assume that. But I really believe what's out there, and we'd mentioned this a little bit earlier, is the impending fiscal cliff. And I think there's been a couple surveys that have come out recently. One was the Wells Fargo Gallup survey for small business, and the other is the Small Business Optimism Index. And both of those have just come out in the last week or two. Both of them had very similar results. And those results were pretty amazing because businesses are very concerned and they feel like they're standing down a little bit relative to looking at what's the regulatory environment going to be in their industry, what is the tax policy going to be, what's our fiscal and economic policy going to be, and what are the long-term economic prospects. But interestingly enough, in those surveys, when you ask those same businesses themselves, they're seeing increases, they're seeing their business improve, as I referred to earlier. But very few of them were looking at any kind of hiring prospects in the near term, and most of them, in fact, had retracted their plans for capital leaders. And most of what our clients, as we go back to the fiscal cliff that everybody uses, I would say as listening to our clients and our prospects over the last few months, they've boiled it down to three possibilities. Number one, nothing happens. And I believe there's a strong belief if that's the case, everybody assumes we could move back into recession. Number two, they kick the can down the road. The legislative body kicks the can down the road, defers the decision for a year or two, and I believe there's a strong feeling from economists and that U.S. debt could be downgraded as a result of that. And then there's the third and most hopeful, and that is that there is some moderate compromise on both sides on taxes and on spending. And while that may throw a short-term economic blip into things, a downturn, because it's there, the long-term prospects look good for business expansion. They look good for businesses looking at opportunities, recapitalizing, capital purchases, and really beginning to spend some of that cash that they're sitting on.
Very interesting, and I think a lot of this is going to play out into January, too. We keep talking about the cliff, but it's not entirely, as sharp as that when you start looking at all the details.
Sure.
I want to bring Al Power into this. When I was reading up on Gates this week, I was reminded how long it's been in Denver, and people who are familiar with the city may know of the location at I-25 and Broadway, where the manufacturing plant used to be. Although nowadays your employees here in Colorado are in lower downtown at your headquarters or at a research and development facility in northern Douglas County. Since 1996, the ownership has been London-based, a company called Tompkins, and we're just very curious to have you tell us what's ahead for Gates in 2013.
Well, I think I'd like to actually pick up a little bit on what Mike said. Starting with the U.S., Gates is a very global company, so we do business all over the world. But up until really the first 8 months of this year, we were on track for record sales in the U.S. Things were really picking up, and we've seen a marked slowdown starting in mid-September and really carrying through to the back half of the year. And we believe a lot of it is the result of the fiscal cliff. Everyone thinks January is the deadline. I think for business it hit in September. And there's so much uncertainty out there, and we're seeing it with our distributors in particular, the smaller ones, the mom and pop businesses. They're doing a lot of destocking because all that uncertainty around small business and what's going to happen and how much taxes they're going to have to pay. It's a real drag on the economy. And if you go around the rest of the world, it's kind of similar situations. The government in Europe can't seem to get their act together. I was in India a couple of weeks ago. Everyone's waiting for the election there in 2014. They think that's what will get the economy back on track in India.
That is a long wait.
It is a long wait. We're seeing some improvement in China right now. We're seeing some improvement in Brazil. Japan, the world's second largest economy, is still very slow. Sounds like they're going into another recession. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but the one common thread everywhere is it seems to be politicians who are making it difficult for businesses to succeed.
Well, it's certainly true during the election cycle that these very same things you're bringing up about uncertainty and so forth figured heavily in that. Tom, what do you think? What happened in September beyond what Mike and Al are talking about?
We can normally tell the Tuesday after Martin Luther King's birthday, where the economy's going to go. We're street people. We pick up stuff quickly. And if our phones aren't ringing on that Tuesday, we can tell you what kind of year it was going to be. Huh. And 2012, the phones didn't ring anywhere near as much as they did in 2011, which was a record year for us in activity. We got through the summer and we said, well, not so many companies interested, but the size of the employment projects were bigger. So our job numbers are up. And then along came September. And we had thought as we moved through the summer that companies were running kind of two pro formas for 13, one with the tax, one with the cliff. But we are all prone to, when you're in business, to look at the downside a lot more than you look at the upside, and we've seen exactly the same thing. Some of the announcements we've had recently are really residuals of work that went on a year ago. The announcement of Charles Schwab, Hitachi's major improvement or increase here. Kaiser Permanente had been at that for about a year. Our activity has slowed similarly, and I will be a little blunt. I think it's unconscionable what Congress and the administration are doing right now. You've got $3 trillion sitting on the sides in publicly held companies. If you just take the first trillion off and take $2 trillion and split it roughly half wages and half CapEx and all the other things you do, you're talking about 2 million jobs that are just waiting for an insulated group of people who are not facing up to the fact that this country is in trouble. You can't continue to pay debt service. You don't get it if you just raise taxes alone. You have to do cuts, and you have to cut entitlements in that process. And so that's 2 million people, and for the U.S. economy to grow appropriately, you need to create about 225, 230,000 jobs a month. So do the math, and you can see that a year's worth of job creation has been stalled by the Congress, and I think that's unconscionable.
One thing that, of course, is under consideration is tax rates. Where do you stand on that in terms of corporate tax rate? Are you just at this point saying, tell me what it is, I don't care if it's high or it's low? Probably not that.
Well, you always worry about tax rates. It's money out the door, and it certainly drives what's left to invest, to provide raises, to give returns to your shareholders. But the reality is the cost of doing business is the cost of doing business, and countries that are more efficient are the ones who are attracting more investment. And our government has to be efficient in terms of how they operate, but they also have to create a climate where companies want to invest. And I think, from my perspective, the U.S. can't continue the way we're going. We have to. It's going to be a combination of taxes and spending cuts. And when you look at the global economy, government efficiency is going to become more and more important. And the governments have to be more efficient, and they have to make it easier for business to do business in their country if they want to attract investment.
I just came back from Brazil. That 25 years ago was a banana republic. They got democracy, they impeached their first president, and they ended up with a very interesting socialist as the prime minister. He had 42% annual inflation, kind of a tough thing to do. So what did he do? He cut federal spending by 9%, increased taxes by 6%, and increased the minimum wage by 50%, because the poor are the ones who get hurt the most by inflation. Brazil's still got problems, don't get me wrong, but it's got a 6% unemployment rate now as a nation.
That's envious.
It's become a part of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, one of the BRIC nations. Their balances of payments are in line. And as we sat there and listened to him, I thought, maybe we could get him to come to Washington and maybe have a conversation with Congress and say, you can put this combination together and create a place that's much more receptive to investment.
I would just add to both of this relative to the corporate tax rates, which you addressed. When you look at many small businesses across the country, they're subchapter S, so it's the tax rates of the individual owners that are really impacted. And to Al's point, when you begin to see an increase in taxes, it does impact those small businesses when they think about hiring an additional employee, replacing the equipment. I was with a small business owner today, one of our actual local car dealerships, who's having a good year this year. And his comment was, look, I assume my taxes are going to go up. I'm hoping they're not going to go astronomical, but just tell me what they're going to go up so I can begin to plan, and I know exactly where to put my investment and where to plan for capital expenditures as we go forward in 2013.
And that's the big challenge for all businesses right now, is you don't know how much cash flow you're going to have next year. So nobody's investing in anything because they're waiting to find out what it's going to be. And I think everyone's prepared for the fact that they're going to be spending more or getting less in return. But until it's defined, everyone's just sitting on the sidelines. And, that's what's causing this slowdown. And if we're not careful, we'll end up back in a recession.
Yeah.
You talk about a bunch of insulated people who are supposed to be making these decisions. Are there not lobbyists who are there, for business saying, please come down on the side and let's get this done?
I will tell you that I think all the special interest groups, whether it's AARP or Earth First or the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, are all in there lobbying their own positions. That's the nature of a democracy. Mm-hmm. You have people trying to influence outcomes. I think what's happened, however, is that we've drawn these lines in the sands on both sides that have made it very, very difficult for either party to move. And we met with our congressional delegation right after the New Year, and they all got returned from Colorado to their office, and we were meeting with the staff, and they said, first of all, thank you very much for returning us to Congress. And number two, we realize if we don't fix this, we'll not be returning in 2 years. And I think that that's an open threat. I think the business community in 2 years, if this has not been settled, will start a national movement to literally throw the rascals out.
Now, Gates, you're planning to go public sometime in the next year or so?
Well, that was our plans probably earlier in the spring. It's obviously our desire to go public is when the market conditions allow, and certainly you couldn't do a public offering in these market conditions. So
that's what I was going to ask. So this doesn't...
So, yeah, we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. We're still hoping 2013 could be a point in time we'd go public, but it's going to depend on the economy getting back on track.
You do business in about 30 countries, is that right? Manufacturing?
We do manufacturing and distribution in about 30 countries. You'll find our products in virtually every country in the world.
And do you find that one of those other countries is just a much easier place to operate?
I think some countries have advantages over other countries. I think one of the great things about the U.S. is labor flexibility. You talk about Brazil. That's one of the challenges of doing business in Brazil is you don't have much flexibility on labor. So consequently, it's very difficult to restructure when you have to. I think that's one of the great things about the U.S. is constantly reinventing ourselves, and there's not this huge burden in doing that. But you look at other countries. We have 5 manufacturing facilities in China. They supply Chinese manufacturers. It's not for export back to the U.S. And, it's a country, it has a lot of red tape, but it's a very pro-business environment, and they help you through the red tape. And in a lot of respects, it's easier to do business in China. On the other hand, labor is getting more difficult there because, the unions are starting to get some power, and they don't know what to do with it in a lot of respects. So every country has its pros and cons. I still fundamentally believe the U.S. is the best place to do business, but it's getting more difficult, and our government and our politicians are getting in the way of business in the U.S.
Tom, I'm glad for a chance to mention your blog, which is called The Cone of Silence. It's related to Maxwell Smart. Can you just explain that?
Well, this shows how old I am, but if you ever saw Get Smart, they were always trying to find a place where they could talk without anybody hearing them. And they tried all these different things. They had these plastic tubes around each other with the tube connecting the two. The thing about the Cone of Silence, it never worked. But in our organization, when there is a particularly delicate conversation going on about a company, and we often, most of the times, operate with non-disclosure agreements. So you'll have a conversation, and you may actually utter the company's name in that conversation. We always go, Cone of Silence is now descended. So my staff thought it'd be funny to put that in my blog.
All right. Well, seriously, in the early December blog, you talked about how Denver was rated, one of the top 10 most productive areas in the country? How was that determined?
It's determined by essentially gross regional product, which is a really nerdy conversation, which I don't want to get into. But really, the key to that is an innovation environment, ease of access to create businesses in Colorado, which is still quite easy to do, to go into business. And then the other thing, which has always been our hold card, is that this very highly educated population that we deal with, and the relationship between productivity and education is almost 1-to-1. So if you've got a highly educated labor force, your people will be more productive. And then the last ringer to us has been Atlanta used to be the #1 location for 25 and 34-year-olds to move. And in casting no aspersions on our competitor, but they've kind of lost a lot of momentum. They just recently defeated a major transit initiative, and that group of 25 to 34-year-olds have now turned to Colorado. So we're seeing this influx, people without jobs, college educated, and they're driving this innovation economy too.
Mike, you mentioned that, first of all, I know Wells Fargo is one of the largest lenders to small businesses in the region. Are there differences regionally within Colorado? Are parts of the state doing better than others?
Yes. First of all, I'm going to say that we were the #1 small business lender
okay.
again,
Sorry,
and we have been for a number of years, and I'm very proud of our team for that. But and we've also been the #1 small business lender nationally, cresting over $1 billion in small business SBA loans this year. But yeah, we do see different segments across the state. There's different sectors that tend to be a little bit slower coming back. For example, up in the mountains we're hoping for a very good ski season this year to help that economy recover. And yet there are pockets, the energy fields, particularly up for example, up around Greeley in Weld County. We're seeing housing that's picking up. We're seeing businesses that support energy beginning to thrive. Southern Colorado, I think it's worked hard, particularly communities like Pueblo, in diversifying their economy, and they've become more stable. And Colorado Springs tends to pick it up as well. The Western Slope, I think, is coming back, perhaps a little slower, but I also see that there's positive things happening because we're seeing our SBA lending happening across the entire state. It's not concentrated just in the metro area or just along the Front Range.
So if Congress does get to one of these 3 outcomes that you were talking about earlier, and let's say it's the best outcome, how quickly would you expect people to start reacting to that? Businesses, I mean, of course. Would you say that the second half of 2013 might see more activity?
I think it's going to be fairly immediate. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand. As I said earlier, a lot of our distributors have destocked. So as things start picking up, they'll start adding inventory. So I think it could be as early as the end of January. We could see very significant pickup in business. But if they don't solve it and soon and not kick the can down the road, then
the
knows?
Uncertainty continues.
Who knows? We could fall back into recession.
And I would echo that. I think that's absolutely right, and I think something that could help jumpstart. We have our chairman and CEO has a saying that certainty in housing is certainty in the economy. And I think there's a few issues that could be resolved that would really help the housing sector pick up along with the positives that we could possibly see with that. That being clarification around regulation to give lenders confidence to jump back in. Clear definition of the government's role in the mortgage business so that perhaps we could invite more individual investment back in, creating more liquidity and more optimism where people have unprecedented opportunities to buy houses in this market that we have. And I think that leads to the certainty that we'd be looking for.
And I think you'll see capital markets respond immediately. And that, when the Dow goes back up, it's suppressed, depressed right now. It's been bumping along. We've seen this in the past where once those situations get settled, it sets a floor under the market, and we saw it in the 90s particularly when we had a decade of unprecedented growth. And that makes people feel good too because their 401k gets fatter, their capital gains start to grow, and they say, well, I've got money now, let's go out and put it into play. Right now, so many people that I know in business are just sitting and sitting and sitting, waiting.
Tom, you know, and I remember when I was first starting to report on things like the economy that in the 80s, Colorado, had some real boom and bust times. And then what got us out of it was becoming more diversified. And then we continued, didn't we, to kind of be better than the national average a lot of times. Are we still in that nice advantage position?
We declared the boom and bust cycle dead forever this year.
I did not hear about that.
Yeah, we had issued one of our research papers called Toward a More Competitive Colorado, and we said permanently dead. And as you well remember, Cynthia, that was the sick and tired of being sick and tired of boom and bust that came from the political sector, the civic sector, the business sector. Let's diversify this economy. In the 1980s, we weren't in the top 25 of diversity as an economy. Today, we're third most diverse state economy in the country.
All right, so that could bode well for us if everything keeps bumping along, not really resolved.
And really why we haven't taken the hits that more monochromatic economies like Phoenix and Las Vegas have seen.
Al, you said before we started taping that you're seeing manufacturing come back to the U.S.?
Yeah, we're seeing a number of our customers move manufacturing back to the U.S. Caterpillar made a number of announcements recently to move manufacturing back. As a result of that, our philosophy is we manufacture close to our customers wherever they are, so it's allowing us to move back jobs back into the U.S. as well. So I think it's a net for the economy. I think it's going to continue to happen. Costs continue to rise in emerging markets. Transportation costs have gone up astronomically the last number of years. They're going to continue to rise. I think over time you're going to see much more kind of equilibrium in terms of where goods are manufactured, much closer to where they're consumed.
And part of that has to do with natural gas.
Oh.
Gas is almost free, kind of like borrowing from Mike.
Thanks, Tom.
But gas is about $3.58 MCF. And places like Ohio, which have huge industrial infrastructure, but the cost of fuel, which we were much more energy dependent on other sources, they've got shale gas. We have shale gas, western Pennsylvania, New York, and that will make manufacturing much cheaper and much more predictable, and to be able to bring that infrastructure back into play. We are very quickly closing on becoming an energy independent nation, which takes us out of a whole bunch of other difficult challenges that we face typically in the Middle East.
We're coming to the end of time, but I want Mike, give us a last comment here. We've talked about the uncertainty that the small businesses are feeling. Banks do planning as well. Do you just have several different scenarios ready to jump?
Yes, we're always trying to think ahead and then be flexible as we move forward. But we still see and believe that there will be some resolution to this, and that the second half, as you referred to, we hope to see it different than what happened the second half of this year. We see perhaps an uptick in the second half of the year.
All right, that's a hopeful note to end on. Thank you very much. And that is Colorado State of Mind for this week. You can see the program again at video.rmpbs.org. And we thank Al Power, Mike Matthews, and Tom Clark for their insights this evening. Happy New Year to all of you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. I'm Cynthia Hessin. Good night.
And I think, you listen to Alan Simpson, the tax increase, income tax increase on the wealthy gets you $400 billion. Well, we've got $1 trillion deficit alone. It doesn't say anything about, the long-term debt. You've got to do these two together, and I think the business community is unanimous in saying, do them both together, tell us what the number is, and let's go.